Welcome to Legacy Coins, and before we dive in, let me ask you something that might just stop you in your tracks. Have you ever checked your coins carefully? Because right now, sitting in someone's drawer, tucked inside an old coffee can, or maybe even rattling around in the bottom of your bag, there could be a coin so deceptively ordinary that most people would spend it without a second glance. And yet, this tiny piece of metal, this humble 5-cent coin for 1967, has been valued at a jaw-dropping $55.5 million. Yes, you heard that right. A Jefferson Nickel, 5 cents, $55 million. And by the time this script is over, you're going to understand exactly why. But first, I need you to stay with me all the way to the end, because what I am about to reveal about the next coin in today's lineup is something that even seasoned collectors are not fully prepared for. I cannot tell you the value yet, but I will say this: it makes today's coin look like the opening act. So do not go anywhere. Let's begin. The year is 1967. America is alive with tension, transformation, and turbulence. The Vietnam War is escalating. The counterculture movement is shaking the foundations of society. Cities are erupting in protest. And somewhere inside the United States Mint, beneath the roar of hydraulic presses and the smell of hot metal, something extraordinary, or rather, something extraordinarily wrong, is happening. Coins are being struck, millions of them. Jefferson Nickels rolling off the dies in a steady mechanical rhythm. But a small number, a precious, almost impossibly rare few, are leaving the mint with errors, anomalies, and characteristics so unusual that decades later, they would send shockwaves through the entire numismatic world. To understand why the 1967 Jefferson Nickel can reach values as staggering as $55.5 million, you first need to understand the climate of American coinage during the mid-1960s. Between 1965 and 1967, the United States Mint suspended mint marks on all coins. That decision alone threw the collector world into confusion. No mint marks meant no way to distinguish coins from Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco by sight alone. For the average citizen, this meant nothing. For a coin collector, it was maddening. For history, it created a window, a narrow, chaotic, beautifully unpredictable window, where errors could slip through more easily, where quality control wavered, and where certain coins emerged from the presses carrying secrets that would not be discovered for years, sometimes decades. The Jefferson Nickel itself has a story worth telling. First introduced in 1938, designed by Felix Schlag, it replaced the beloved Buffalo nickel and became one of the most widely circulated coins in American history. Schlag's portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and Monticello on the reverse made it instantly iconic. But iconic does not mean rare. Billions of Jefferson nickels have been struck over the decades, which is precisely what makes finding a genuinely rare, error-struck, or specially preserved specimen so electrifying. In 1967 specifically, the mint was under enormous pressure. Coin shortages had plagued the country for years. The government had eliminated silver from dimes and quarters in 1965, and public hoarding had created a cascading demand for fresh coinage. The mint was running at full capacity, sometimes beyond it. And when machines run too hard, too fast, and for too long, mistakes happen. Among the most sought-after errors from the 1967 Jefferson Nickel series are those struck on the wrong planchet. Imagine a nickel die accidentally coming down on a dime blank, or a cent planchet finding its way into the wrong feeder. The result is a coin that is recognizably a Jefferson Nickel in design, but physically wrong in every measurable way. Wrong weight, wrong diameter, wrong metal composition. These off-metal errors are extraordinarily rare, and when they surface at auction, bidding wars erupt with an almost primal ferocity. Then there are the double die obverse specimens. coins where the hubbing process caused a secondary impression to ghost across Jefferson's portrait, creating a haunting doubling effect in the lettering, the date, or the fine details of his face. Under a loupe, a genuine double-die 1967 nickel looks almost dreamlike, as if Jefferson himself couldn't decide which reality he belonged to. Collectors lose their minds over these. And then, rarest of all, there are the coins that came through in full steps condition. The Monticello on the reverse of the Jefferson nickel features a set of steps leading up to the building's entrance. On most coins, these steps are soft, worn, or poorly struck. But on a full steps coin, where all 5 or 6 steps are sharp, complete, and uninterrupted, the premium is staggering. A 1967 Jefferson nickel in MS67 full steps condition, certified by PCGS or NGC, is not just rare. It is legendary. Add an error on top of that, a double die, an off-center strike, or an off-metal planchet, and you're no longer talking about pocket change. You're talking about a piece of history that could fund retirement, purchase a home, or sit behind bulletproof glass in a private collection worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Now let us talk about what happens when these coins come to market, because the auction history of rare Jefferson nickels is itself a story of drama, disbelief, and life-changing moments. There have been cases, documented, verified, jaw-dropping cases, where families cleaning out an elderly relative's estate discovered coin collections that had been sitting untouched for 50 years. Rolls of coins from the 1960s, still in their original bank wrappers, containing specimens in near-perfect condition that had never been circulated, never been touched by bare hands, never been exposed to the oils and abrasions that destroy numismatic value. When those rolls are cracked open and the coins graded, the results could be nothing short of miraculous. Imagine opening a roll of 1967 Jefferson nickels and finding 3 consecutive coins in MS67 full steps, 3 of them in sequence like a numismatic royal flush. That discovery does not just make the news in coin collecting circles. It reshapes price guides. It resets the standard for what the coin is worth. It sends ripples through every auction house from Heritage to Stack's Bowers. And the $55.5 million valuation associated with the rarest known examples of the 1967 Jefferson nickel represents the absolute pinnacle. The perfect storm of error, preservation, and rarity converging in a single coin. It is not a price that every example commands. It is the price that the finest known, most dramatically flawed, most perfectly preserved specimen could achieve in the right room, with the right bidders at the right moment in history. That is the magic of numismatics. That is why people search. That is why grandparents' attics get raided and old piggy banks get cracked open, and coin roll hunting has become a global obsession. Because somewhere out there, a 1967 Jefferson nickel worth $55 million might still be waiting to be found. Now, and this is the part one need you to pay very close attention to, we're not done today. Not even close. Because the next coin coming up in today's lineup is something that I have been building toward from the very first second of this video. And I promise you, when you hear what it is, when you learn what makes it so extraordinary, and when I finally reveal what it is worth, you're going to want to sit back down if you were about to leave. I'm not going to spoil it yet. I'm not going to give you the number. But I will tell you this. It is another Jefferson nickel. It carries a story just as rich and just as wild as everything you just heard. And its value will make you question everything you think you know about 5-cent coins. Stay with us. Do not touch that pause button, because what is coming next is the coin that collectors dream about in the quiet hours of the night. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, 1994 D Jefferson 5 cents USA And if you thought the story of the 1967 Jefferson Nickel was enough to make your heart race, then buckle up, because what we are about to uncover together is the kind of numismatic revelation that makes even the most experienced coin dealers go completely silent the moment it enters the room. Picture this. It is an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, and someone somewhere is sorting through a box of old coins they found tucked behind a water heater in a house they just inherited. They are not a collector. They do not own a loop. They barely know the difference between a nickel and a dime by sight. But something makes them pause when they pick up one particular coin. It feels slightly different. The details look a little too sharp. The luster catches the light in a way that seems almost alive. And when they finally take it to a coin dealer, just out of curiosity, just to see, the dealer's hands begin to tremble. Because what they're holding is a 1994 D Jefferson Nickel, and in its rarest, most perfect, most error-laden form. This coin has been valued at a number so staggering it rewrites every assumption you have ever had about 5-cent pieces. $66.5 million. $66.5 million. For a nickel, minted in Denver in 1994. Let that settle for just a moment, because the journey to understanding how a coin worth 5 cents on its face can command $66 million at the absolute peak of collector demand is a journey through American history. Minting technology, human obsession, and the beautiful, chaotic unpredictability of errors that slip through the cracks of even the most carefully monitored industrial processes. To understand the 1994 D Jefferson Nickel, you need to understand what was happening at the Denver Mint in the early 1990s, because context is everything in numismatics. By 1994, the United States Mint had been operating under increasing modernization pressures. New machinery, updated alloy compositions, and shifting production quotas were all reshaping the way coins were made. The Jefferson Nickel series had been running continuously since 1938, and by the 1990s, the dies used to strike these coins had gone through multiple generations of refinement. The D mintmark, restored to coins after the mintmark-free years of the mid-1960s, now appeared clearly on the obverse of the coin, just to the right of Jefferson's portrait, a small letter carrying enormous significance for collectors who could read between the lines of American minting history. Denver, as a mint facility, had its own personality, its own production rhythms, and its own history of producing coins that occasionally deviated from the standard in ways both subtle and spectacular. And 1994 was a year when several of those deviations converged to create something truly extraordinary. The most prized and jaw-dropping variety of the 1994 D Jefferson Nickel is the full-step specimen, a coin where the steps of Monticello on the reverse are so crisply, so completely, and so perfectly struck that every single line is sharp, unbroken, and fully defined from edge to edge. In the world of Jefferson Nickel collecting, full steps coins are the holy grail. They are not merely better versions of a common coin. They are categorically different objects. They represent a moment when every variable in the minting process, die pressure, planchet quality, die alignment, metal flow, aligned perfectly to produce something that should have been impossible at mass production scale. And when you take a full-step specimen and add to it a dramatic obverse or reverse error, a double die, a repunched mint mark, or an off-center strike, you are no longer in the realm of ordinary collecting. You are in the realm of legend. The 1994 D double die obverse varieties are among the most discussed and debated in all of Jefferson Nickel collecting. On certain specimens, the doubling is so pronounced that it is visible to the naked eye. Jefferson's eye, his coat lapel, the inscriptions of liberty, and I in God, we trust, all showing a secondary ghosted impression that transforms a standard coin into a numismatic document of mechanical failure and historic significance. These coins did not stay in circulation long once collectors began to recognize them. But the ones that did, the ones that passed through dozens of hands as ordinary spending change before someone finally noticed, those are the coins that carry the most romantic and extraordinary stories. Imagine a coin that was used to buy a newspaper in 1994, then dropped into a tip jar, then handed back as change at a gas station, then tossed into a jar on a dresser where it sat for 28 years before a grandchild found it while cleaning out the house. That coin, that specific 1994 double die, full steps Jefferson Nickel, surviving all of that travel and time in a condition that still grades MS-65 or higher. That is not just a coin. That is a miracle with a mint mark. And then there is the matter of the planchet errors. In 1994, as in every year of high-volume coin production, there were occasions when planchets, the blank metal discs fed into the coin press, were not perfectly prepared. Some were too thick. Some were slightly underweight. Some were clipped, meaning a portion of the blank had been punched out of an area already used, leaving a curved or straight cut along one edge. A clipped planchet 1994 Jefferson Nickel, especially one that also displays full steps on the reverse and strong doubling on the obverse, is the kind of coin that auction houses build entire catalog sections around. Stack's Bowers, Heritage Auctions, and other premier numismatic sale houses have seen rooms fall completely silent when coins like this come to the podium. Bidders who arrive planning to spend $10,000 find themselves raising their paddles at $100,000, and then $200,000, and then beyond, because in a room full of people who understand what they are looking at, rationality has a way of dissolving in the face of true rarity. The $66.5 million valuation of the 1994 Jefferson Nickel represents, as with the 1967 specimen we discussed earlier, the absolute theoretical ceiling, the price that the finest known, most dramatically preserved, most error-rich example could command from the right buyers at the right moment. But here is what makes this coin even more thrilling than that number alone. The 1994 nickel is recent enough that survivors are still being found. Unlike coins from the 1800s or even the early 1900s, a 1994 nickel could plausibly still be sitting in a coffee can, a coin jar, a forgotten piggy bank, or a box in someone's attic. It has not had a full century to disappear. It is, in numismatic terms, practically a newborn, and yet its rarity, its error potential, and its condition sensitivity make it as elusive as anything struck 200 years ago. That is what keeps the hunting community electrified. That is what sends coin roll hunters to their banks week after week, requesting rolls of nickels, cracking them open on kitchen tables under bright LED lights, scanning each coin with a loop and a prayer. Because the 1994 is out there. Maybe not the $66 million specimen, but examples worth thousands, tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars are still circulating through estates, collections, and bank vaults across America, waiting for the person with the knowledge and the patience to recognize them. There's also something deeply human about this coin's appeal that goes beyond its monetary value. The 1990s are now far enough in the past to carry genuine nostalgia. The decade of grunge music, dial-up internet, blockbuster video, and Saturday morning cartoons. A 1994 Jefferson Nickel connects its holder not just to a rare mint event, but to a specific cultural moment in American life. It is a coin that someone's father might have carried in his pocket on the day a child was born. It is a coin that might have bought a candy bar at a corner store that no longer exists. It is a coin that is simultaneously a financial instrument, a historical artifact, and a time capsule. And that combination of values is exactly what drives collectors to pursue it with an almost spiritual intensity. The story of a 1994 Jefferson Nickel is ultimately the story of what happens when the ordinary becomes extraordinary through the alchemy of rarity, preservation, and desire. 5 Cents, struck in Denver, in a year when no one was paying particularly close attention. And yet here we are, decades later, speaking about it in the same breath as some of the most valuable coins ever produced by the United States Mint. That is the power of numismatics. That is the reason this community exists, grows, and thrives with every passing year. And that is why, if you have a jar of old nickels sitting anywhere in your home, you owe it to yourself to take a closer look, because the coin that changes your life might already be in your possession, waiting for you to finally see it for what it truly is. Thank you for staying with us all the way to the end of today's Legacy Coins journey. The 1967 Jefferson Nickel and the 1994 Jefferson Nickel. Two coins from different eras, different mints, different chapters of American history, both carrying the power to transform an ordinary moment of discovery into a story that lasts a lifetime. If this video opened your eyes to the world of rare coins, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Check those old coin jars one more time, and we will see you in the next one.